Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to my channel. My name is Barbara, and today we're going to be looking at Pluto in Scorpio. So super excited to be getting into this particular placement because Pluto in Scorpio, that is its home sign. Okay, Pluto is ruled by Scorpio. So basically you have that Scorpionic energy emphasized and enhanced. Pluto as a planet basically rules an entire generation. Okay, so the way you can look at it, it's that particular generation's karma that they all incarnated together to clear. So Pluto entered Scorpio in 1983, it exited in 1995. So on the tail end of those, basically the way Pluto works is it enters the sign, goes retrograde back into the old sign, officially enters the sign, and then at the end it's going to exit, come back retrograde, and officially enter the new sign. So on either end of those, you might have friends who have, let's say, Pluto in Sagittarius. You might be Pluto in retrograde Scorpio. If you do have Pluto retrograde, basically all this means is that it's a little bit more challenging for you to accept these changes and transformations. It makes sense because also you're not really with the rest of your generation, if that makes sense, okay? Because you're on the end. So you're technically falling under the millennial generation. So this is the millennial generation as a whole, and there is a lot to cover, okay? So Pluto in Scorpio basically is going to be clearing. So Pluto, when it comes through any particular sign, it's going to be clearing any sort of stagnant energy, any sort of belief systems, any sort of constructs that we all have within us that society has built for us, and Pluto just destroys that, okay? So because of the fact that Scorpio as a sign is all about death, rebirth, death, rebirth, death, rebirth, this is really what Pluto does, and now it's enhanced, okay? Because we have Pluto in Scorpio, so we have twice the Scorpionic energy. Scorpio as a sign is already intense, okay? They tend to go in extremes, okay? They might go into extreme polarities of things. Even if you know any Scorpio placement people, you might notice they're very extreme when they're involved in something. They're going to be super into it, and if they're not, they're over it. They're going to be into the next thing. This is really the Scorpionic energy. It's all to do with sex, death, rebirth, the occult, joint finances, and taxes, okay? So as usual, you guys might be wondering, what do all of these things have in common? Well, it's all to do with control, okay? So in this 3D plane that we're currently in, all these things are a way of controlling people, okay? Just not just controlling people, but a way for you to also control people. So this is a huge thing that this generation is working through. They're really working through that need to control others, but also being controlled in return, okay? So there's a lot of things that this generation basically incarnated to clear. I find that probably a lot of people in this generation are old souls. They're probably clearing a lot of generational stuff within that whole family line, okay? Because again, it's things that are also hidden. It's things that are secret, okay? So it might be things that, let's say, like the family didn't discuss or talk about, and now the Pluto and Scorpio child incarnated, and they're going to be like, well, let's talk about it. Let's heal this. Let's clear this, okay? And this is a huge theme right now in general. What we talk about, we talk a lot about healing. We talk a lot about clearing. We talk a lot about generational things, trauma, all these sorts of things, patterns, curses, whatever way, shape, or form you want to look at it. This is really what the Pluto and Scorpio incarnated to do. So it might seem challenging because it is a challenging placement, okay? It might seem intense at times. I mean, obviously you guys can take breaks at any times that you need, but also what's interesting with this generation is they are also basically clearing anything to do with sexuality. And also, if we look at it, the generation as a whole, this is really where hookup culture became very popular, okay? It's really where it became very popular. And it's interesting because actually in some articles, they basically said that studies, okay, have said that this generation actually has the least amount of sex, which is interesting because of the fact that the hookup culture is so huge, okay? Because they're not consistently with one partner. So they're maybe jumping from partner to partner. There's a lot to do with attachment. There's a huge mother wound, okay, in this generation. So there's a lot to heal. There's a lot to heal. There's a lot to clear. Again, beliefs around relationships and how they look, okay, for you. Because again, we come out of Pluto in Libra, which was all about relationships. And then now we basically come into Pluto in Scorpio, and Pluto in Scorpio is going to be, again, the undercurrent. It's going to be all about the energy. It's going to be all about clearing. Again, it's all about healing. It's all about bringing repressed emotions to the surface. This is a lot to do with Scorpio as a sign as well. Scorpio is basically the alchemist, okay? So they're meant to change and transform and transmute any lower vibrational emotions, not only their own, but the ones that they may have taken on, again, throughout the family line. So it's huge. It's a huge task, okay? It might be intense at times. There's a lot of things that happened for this generation. If we look in history in general, there was like financial crashes, all these sorts of things, all before the time they turned 30, okay? So all these things basically took place. And again, you would have to see what kind of effect that took place on them as well. So it's an intense, basically generation and intense placement to have. And this is really what they're clearing as a whole, okay? It's really what they're clearing. And the thing with Scorpio, what's beautiful is when they come out of the lower vibrational energies, they turn into the phoenix rising. And this is basically the ultimate end goal for this generation is to come out of this lower vibrational motion, transmute it, and come into that phoenix rising. Okay, so that's the ultimate end goal. A lot of the time this can be through creativity. Okay, so if you have this placement, you could be interested in anything to do with the creative arts, anything basically to transmute those lower vibrational emotions, anything that you've been through, anything that you've experienced, maybe people that you know have experienced and you've maybe taken it on, all these sorts of things. So this is really what that is, and they're transforming it through some form of creative means. That's the ultimate end goal for Scorpio as a sign, then also for this particular generation. Okay, so Scorpio as a sign wants to transmute lower vibrational emotions into higher vibrational ones, and that's ultimately what they're doing here on this earth plane. And it's not an easy task. So a lot of people who incarnated in this generation, like I mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them were old souls, probably incarnated into dysfunctional, maybe family patterns or dysfunctional situations. Maybe not everybody, okay, maybe not everybody, but I find Pluto in Scorpio is intense, okay, is intense basically as a placement. There's a lot to clear. There is a lot to clear as a sign, okay, and this is just what Scorpio's nature is, okay. They're basically going to be the sign that's in the back of the room, in the corner, watching everybody, you know, thinking, debating, dwelling, right? And then when they assess the situation, that's when they jump in. That's Scorpio as a sign. So this is really what's going on, whether it's conscious or subconscious. It manifests in different situations for different people. If it's not conscious, okay, it could just be the circumstances that you're in, the situations you're in. But also what's interesting is this generation is not only called millennials, but they're also called Generation Y. So if we even look at what that means, is there's a lot of questions, right, that they're going to be asking themselves. Why am I in this situation? You know, I find that this is the beginnings of that, okay? Because when we start with Scorpio and we move into the later signs, these are the ones that are more, again, about the psychic gifts, the mediumship abilities, all these sorts of things. And again, questioning everything around you because it might not be in resonance with your inner world. In this generation, also, we've seen a lot of spirituality starting off. Okay, so now this is a huge theme and topic that people talk about, but this really started with this generation because my theory is because of the Harry Potter series. Okay, so there was the world of magic and all these sorts of things that was introduced, even Lord of the Rings, all these sorts of things were big for this particular generation. So there is that interest in magic. Okay, that's the occult, that occult energy, and wizards and witches and witchcraft and all these sorts of things. So it's interesting to see how pop culture and a lot of things that this generation has grown up with has had an impact on them. Even other things, sometimes I even think about, like, let's say like Sailor Moon, right? I think about that and I'm like, you know, all of the planets are in there, and that's kind of like the interest for astrology, right? So this is where this generation, the beginnings of that, okay, the beginnings of that basically started with Pluto in Scorpio, and then now it's more mainstream with Pluto in Sag and so on and so forth. It becomes more and more mainstream because we're in general moving again into those higher chakras, into the spiritual chakras, into more of a spiritual way of being. Okay, so a lot of interest within the occult, again, anything to do with the hidden, finding things out that are hidden, anything coming to the surface is really what that is. In general, the times that we're living in, the veil is very thin, so a lot of things are coming to the surface. Again, this doesn't have to just be on the mass scale. It could just be within your everyday lives. It could be literally things that, you know, maybe someone in the family line never mentioned and now they're mentioning it for the first time in their life, and you find out about that, and it's pivotal for you because it basically helps you recognize a pattern within yourself. Okay, another thing with this, within this generation, I noticed like therapy became more like normalized, okay, compared to previous generations. All these sorts of things, healing, okay, this is a huge theme. It's a huge theme with this generation. It's been all about healing. Like I mentioned, their Generation Y, asking themselves, why am I like this? Why am I in this situation? Why is this not working out for me? You know, having a repeated pattern and really seeing like, how does this person keep manifesting? Manifestation is a huge topic with this generation as well, which is interesting because The Secret also came out while they were young. So all these sorts of things, you know, it's very interesting to see because it kind of aligns with that Scorpionic energy of, again, wanting to know the occult, working with energy, learning to work with energy. This is really what Scorpio is. And, you know, emotions are just energy in motion. So this is a huge thing that this generation is meant to learn. They're meant to learn to master their emotions. They're meant to learn to transmute. They're meant to learn to heal themselves and then in turn heal the world by healing themselves. This is a huge thing. And ultimately at the end, they're meant to become the alchemist, is really what that is, the magician. Okay, in the tarot, we would call this the magician card. Basically becoming a master manifester is really what the Pluto in Scorpio is all about, becoming a master manifester, creating everything that you want. And again, because of the fact that you've come from, you know, the lowest of the lows is really what that is. And that's really a huge thing with the Pluto and Scorpio generation. So there's a lot for them to clear, a lot. It's almost like like burdensome, if that makes sense. It's heavy on the soul. A lot of them don't even realize that they incarnated with this. It's dark. Okay, that's that Scorpionic energy, because Scorpio as a sign is always going to be looking for what's hidden. Okay, so they're going to be looking for what's hidden within other people, the darkness within other people, all these sorts of things. And that's basically what the generation as a whole is doing. Obviously it depends on the rest of your chart, and obviously you're going to have outliers who might not resonate with this, but this is really what this generation as a whole is here to clear. So anything to do with this topic, sex, death, the occult, rebirth, joint finances, and taxes. So that's another thing with joint finances as well, that they're basically here to do also, because also a lot of people in this generation I notice are even interested in, let's say, like entrepreneurship. So we have the preliminary stages of entrepreneurship within this generation, because Pluto in Sag, they're like the true entrepreneurs. And then again, is the nature of the time that we're living in, because that's the direction we're all headed in. So it's really interesting to see, because there's a lot of breaking the family line. There's a lot of coming out of the norm. Okay, there's a lot of, again, coming out of like the strict schedule, typical everything, because again, we came from Pluto and Virgo, which was again all about having a routine, having a schedule, following everything within society, the norm. Okay, and then we moved into Pluto and Libra, which was assessing relationships, and now I have Pluto and Scorpio, which is just an explosion of intense energy, is really what that is. Because not only is it in Scorpio, like I mentioned, but it's in its home sign. Okay, so you have double of this energy. So it's really intense. It's an intense placement to have. It's definitely not for the faint heart. And a lot of souls who incarnated in this group basically took that on. They basically came through to clear anything generational, anything within the line, anything again to do even with codependency could be a theme within this generation, really healing that as well. Attachment issues, this is again all to do with the sacral chakra. Okay, the mother wound is a huge one within this generation as well. I mean, I could get even more into that as to how that even manifested, but that's a different video for a different day. So we would look at really the sacral chakra and anything to do with the sacral chakra, overflowing emotions, learning to balance emotions, learning to balance sexuality in general, questioning it. What is it? Even like the beginning stages of certain movements, if that makes sense. So this is really what that is. Okay, so this is really what this generation is here to do. They're here to explore, and they're here to break through all these sorts of things, again, within themselves, and then in turn within society. And then we move into Pluto in Sagittarius, which is very freeing. Okay, very freeing as a sign, but Pluto in Scorpio is super intense. A lot of people within this generation, again, probably went through huge ups and downs, and maybe they're just starting to feel balanced now, because certain things within this generation are being normalized just now, like I mentioned, within spirituality, the occult, mediumship, even psychic gifts and abilities. Maybe some people were highly intuitive when they were younger. Again, maybe it wasn't as normalized, but that was exactly what they came through to work on. Okay, it's exactly that. Okay, so mediumship is a huge thing. Again, anything to do with the unseen energy, okay, the unseen realm, anything to do with, again, secrets, hidden things, again, within the family lines, the biggest one that they're particularly clearing, hidden things within society, bringing certain things to the surface, talking about certain things that maybe weren't talked about before, anything taboo. Again, that's Pluto in Scorpio, bringing certain things to the surface, any sort of, again, socioeconomic issues, talking about them, verbalizing them, bringing it again to the surface, bringing it to people's attention, all these sorts of things. This is really this particular generation, what they're doing as a generation as a whole. Now, again, it depends. Like, you can be doing it in your local community, depends on the rest of your chart. It doesn't necessarily have to be on a mass scale, but it can be in your local community, or it can just be with your friend group, all these sorts of things, but bringing things to people's attention, because again, it's a ripple effect. Okay, so this is really what that is. And again, everyone has a different story to share. Everyone has different experiences that they've gone through. And again, it's about sharing, opening up that throat chakra and communicating. And again, when you do that, it opens up another person's eyes to maybe things that they weren't able to see before. So this is really what Pluto and Scorpio is all about. It's intense. It's all about learning, again, to balance the emotions through creativity. Okay, so this is the biggest thing. So a lot of people within this generation could be looking to be creative. There's so many different ways you can be creative. It doesn't necessarily just have to be artistic, okay, talent. It can be doing things like these videos. That's a form of creative expression, right? It could be doing absolutely anything. It could be writing, it could be painting, it could be singing, it could be dancing, all these sorts of things, because they're pretty much transmuting lower vibrational emotions, things that haven't been talked about, things that haven't been addressed, is really coming on this generation. And that's really what they're here to heal and here to clear, is really what that is. So this is really Pluto and Scorpio. It's an intense placement to have for sure. Double of that Scorpionic energy. Definitely been through a lot, I would say, as a generation as a whole. I mean, if we would really, like I mentioned, up until the point that they were 30, they were already in so many different historical events. Okay, you guys can definitely look those up if you're interested. I can't remember all of them at the top of my head, but this is really what that is. And even that then had an effect on them. So interesting soul group that incarnated with this with the Pluto and Scorpio is really what that is. There is a lot for them to clear. Okay, it's a lifetime of clearance. I would say that a lot of them basically agreed on a soul level to incarnate, to clear. They're here to clear, they're here to heal, they're here to transmute, and they're here to alchemize. Energy is the ultimate end result of absolutely everything, is that they're just transmuting energy ultimately at the end of the day, you know, through speaking, through talking, through feeling emotions, through expressing themselves creatively, all these sorts of things. So I'm gonna wrap up my Pluto and Scorpio video there. I do hope that you guys did enjoy it. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe, and I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day.